So that's the kind of one thing. Everybody has to be on the same page. And what are the goals, right? Obviously, first goal is to save money, but beside that, there also has to be goal that some applications, you know, and I'll talk that more on other screens when coming to the next screens. Um, Other thing is you must have somebody at least in the team who understand the cloud and the cloud resources and have experience, because if you don't, what will happen is you will end up configuring your servers wrong way, and if you do that, it's sometimes if you don't know, it will be really hard to go back. So that's very important. Clear understanding of what kind or how many resources and what type resources you need. It's very important. Again, you cannot just go and say, oh, everything we are going to do, platform as a service, everything we're going to do, infra as a service. You can't do that. You have to figure out and see what makes sense. It's not it, and if you don't have a cloud experience, doesn't matter how many years of experience you have building applications or managing databases or managing hardware, doesn't matter. You have to rethink. You have to take a lot of things out of your mind and think about clearly as a fresh start. Think of that, because a lot of things, if you try to connect that, oh, I used to do this when I was on-prem, that's not going to work here. Okay, so sure, some will be almost same, but think of that you may have to rewire your brain. All right. So other second part, let's look at second point. And by the way, these points are not in any particular order. I'm just sharing what when I am sitting down with these companies, how I work with them and manage and advise them. So everybody on an enterprise level has to have a cloud awareness. It's not about just accounting. So it's not about finance guys just focusing on saving money. It is also role of a software developer to focus on, am I doing this optimized for cost or not? Because that's important, right? Trust me, I work with so many clients in last 2 years, at least 10 of them. And majority of them, what I have seen is that if every time there's a new application is deployed, they're like, okay, let's spin up one more VM and just deploy it there, and then give access to the right people, and they do whatever they do. So that's the easiest way out, right? But that's not the right way out, because you may be creating a virtual machine with 8 GB RAM on it and database on it, everything on it with one license, and that application may be just using 3 times a month. That's not the right approach to do it. So as a software developer, as an architect, as a DevOps, as a whoever else is managing the data, anybody involved, they all have to at least think that, is this the right approach? And is this focusing on saving us cost? It's just not, my work is just, we cannot, as a developer, we cannot just say, oh, my work is, or a DevOps guy, just my work is just to, spin up the VM, whatever they ask me for this many resources, I created, it's good to go. And developer is like, hey, I just deploy. No, you also have to go and monitor at least for first couple of months, see things are going right. Is resources being consumed all right? What's the cost? What's the resource that's taking? It's a part of the whole. It's a teamwork. And as a company, training and certification is very important. And I'm not saying you need a degree, but at least what's happening in the cloud world, things are changing so quickly, right? So there may be something more optimized service available. You have to keep an eye on that. So it's not just like once and done. You have to continue make sure looking around there. As I said, cloud optimization is a continuous process, not just like even you deployed something. So let's say you created a virtual machine, you deployed an application there, or you created some resources. Let's say you just went on a cloud, you're just using pure cloud, you created some resources. You still have to go and monitor them, make sure and make improvements. And that's where in my next slides, you will see how you can monitor them and make improvements. I know it's a lot of work as a software developers. Last thing we want to do is monitor applications and servers and resources and look for money, because we just want to go back and write our code. I understand, but again, this is we have to a little bit change our mindset, because end of the day, cloud is all about saving money, saving business money, right? You have to look at the policy. They are very important, right? So This will require approvals from different people in different teams. So now teamwork even becomes more important, and that's why DevOps' kind of role is growing more because there's the glue between developers and operations and other IT resources. Um, um, Even though you are not a part of that, but I think companies, enterprises should make the billing and cost review monthly process at least for first 3-4 months. Uh, and then improve from there. Once your improvements are done, then it's fine. But in the beginning, at least you have to look at that. So what a cloud services make sense? This is important. Again, it's a continuation of the previous that no one option is the right option. You have to think all the way. You have to look at the is it multi-cloud strategy, and I can share my personal experience with multi-cloud and hybrid cloud. It's very important because uh, even C Sharp Corner. I'm not sure if you guys know C Sharp Corner. We have millions of users access C Sharp Corner every month, and I'm talking about in the year 2021 we have 30 almost 29.4 million users access C Sharp Corner. Every day we have almost um, not terabytes but a lot of data download on C Sharp Corner because we have ebooks, there are PDFs, we have source code, we have training material, we have video streaming, we have live streaming, all that. So there is so much data need for us, and what we did is when we tried to move this to Azure Cloud, in the first few months, it cost us like 30,000 a month just in Azure cost. And then we start optimizing those. And for some, for our file storage, we start using CDN. For our emails, we start using different services. For our file storage, we used to start using different services. CDN in Google. Now we are a combination of Google Cloud, something we are doing in Google Cloud, some we are doing in different CDNs, some we are doing streaming on video hosting in different platform. So now we have moved down from almost 30,000 a month to 4,000, 3,000 a month. It's a big, and especially C Sharp Corner as a community. We budget is we don't have a lot of money to spend. It's a community, it's not a company. So as you can see, we have came down from 29, some $30,000 to 3,000. That's like a big saving. And it's because Azure has some services, but they just don't have all optimized services for everything. You have to think about that. That's why hybrid cloud is also important because you can post a lot of things on Azure Public Cloud, but there's some things they are local that make sense that you probably want to have your local Azure stack, because if you let's say think you are a hospital, you're a big hospital, okay, and you do a lot of file processing, a lot of storage, a lot of data. It can be scanning, it can be CSR, all those operations where you don't really need to send your files to cloud, come back again, download again, do processing, and you are the only user there. The hospital, you're not sharing these files with other companies or other hospitals. It doesn't make sense to you move everything to Azure Cloud. You definitely want Azure services, what Azure has to offer, but you can just have a local Azure stack on your prem, because out of sudden you are saving so much, bandwidth. Bandwidth costs a lot on cloud. You're paying for every time any data comes in and out. You're paying for that. Remember, it's like a subscription model, right? So pay as you gain, reserve. So pay as you go is great for smaller applications. If you are a smaller applications, once in a while somebody using it, it doesn't have a heavy load. There's not, a lot of people accessing it. That's great. But if you have a big application where a lot of people are using it, it's publicly available, you should look into reserve instances. So because you're buying in a bulk. Think of like you going to perfect example is think of like you buying a bottle of water from Wawa versus you buying a big gallons of water from Costco, right? If you know that you're going to drink to 30 liters of water, it doesn't make sense for you to go to Wawa 30 times and buy 30 bottles. Make sense? So that's kind of thinking. The same thing applies to cloud. You have to look at your use cases, and something doesn't make as pay you go. And I've seen developers, everything they go, okay, create a new resource. Every application, let's create a new resource. That's not going to work for everything. That's great for some. So, and answer is not, there's no one answer. You have to look at it, look at your needs, look at your users, look at your scalability options and in your loads and so consumptions and all that. And then you make the decision on that. Again, same thing. You have to think between what kind of services you're using. Sometimes, as I mentioned earlier, it makes sense to use third parties. Third parties are available on, cheaper, right? Especially as I explained with my C# corner. So on C# corner, we have 3 million registered emails. And we don't send a lot of newsletters or regular emails is because it's just so many emails. So we try to send, and even our newsletter, that's a 1.6 million subscribers. So what we did is we say, let's take 100,000 these emails and we're going to try to send them emails, US only. So we kind of took a little data. And if we were sending those emails, bulk emails, using Azure services, they were so costly because what Azure doesn't have its own native bulk email service. So they using third parties, right? If you go to the third party direct, like SendMail, SendGrid, they were much cheaper. So point I'm making is that you need to think that what makes sense for you. I hope you're learning something so far. We are on third slide, 7 more to go. This is very important when you are provisioning your new resources, let's say your virtual machines and all that, start with the lower end of the estimates. I know in the beginning of my days, what we'll say, oh, you know what, we probably end up, we right now we need 32 GB, but let's put 64 just in case. Let's put 128 GB RAM just in case. So good thing with cloud is that most cases, if you're provisioning your new virtual machine, it will give you an option that this is automatically upgradable as on demand. So look for that. Don't look for the machines where they say you cannot upgrade it automatically. You have to then recreate and migrate and all that. And not every machine support that. Depend on you have to look for there's an option there. You have to look for those and start with the lower end, because good thing is when you start with the lower end, you are not wasting any resources. Okay, and when you need more, then you just say it's quick button upgrade. Say, yeah, I want to upgrade from 8 GB to 16 GB. That's all it is really. And you can look at the different tools and they can recommend that. Same thing with the CPU, memory and storage. Always look for the you just, let's say you are a dev team, you are launching a new project and within your organization, and you think like you need 2 GB RAM, 4 GB RAM to run this because few hundred people are going to use it. So start with that. But what happens when you look at and analyzing and look at the report and look at the performance, you see that, oh, I think it was slow here because of these reasons, and then you can upgrade. You need more CPU, add more other memory storage you need, just add more. You can do all that later. Same thing, you can modify your VMs anytime. Use spot VMs are very important when it's come to saving money. This is very important, especially think of that. There can be a batch job you want to run in your backend from 3 hours, from 1 to in the morning, from 1 to 5 a.m. You want to run something. You don't need a dedicated virtual machine for that you have to pay 24/7, right? So you can use spot VMs for that. Again, test environment. Think of this way. So if you have, in your company, you have 3 test servers, for example, you do QA testing on those. Are they all available only on certain times, right? So your testing team may be testing only from 9 to 5 Eastern time. These machines don't have to run after 5 p.m. Eastern and all night, right? There's no need to them to run, because remember, it's a that's the biggest challenge with the cloud, is that if you don't shut them down, they're going to run and they're going to bill, and meter is moving up, and you're paying. It may be not a lot of money, but you're still paying that, right? Meter is running. So and there are options. There are options where you can select these options that, hey, when I don't use from this time to this time, automatic shut down my machine. and then restart again at, if your team start 9 a.m., you can start at 8:30 a.m., right? It doesn't have to be run all night. It's like at home. You don't need to leave your computer running all the time if you're not using it. You don't need to leave your TV running all the time if you're not watching it. It's no different than that. That's why I say, hey, make sure your computer is off. If you're not off, means off, not just in a sleep mode, because even in a sleep mode, it's consuming some of energy, right? That's it's the same idea. That's how you have to think when you think of a cloud. That is there anything on my cloud account I don't use and it's still running and it's still costing me? I hope I'm making sense, guys. How do you analyze in Azure? Azure Cost Manager is one of the top tool I use it all the time, and we, almost every week we review that. Just not me. Team sits down. Team means architect or the one or two developers who are decision makers, senior guys, and we all sit down and say, let's look at it. How much money we are spending this month and a week? Right? In the beginning, it's probably should be weekly, and then after now it's monthly. And then once in a while we find certain things like, oh, this doesn't make sense. What happened here? Why we pay, right? Why we paying here? Then you look at it and say, oh, this PDF was by chance this PDF was linked to our Azure rather than going to CDN. So you can then change that. So I look at Azure Cost Management. Is basically you look at the billing and spending. Again, as a developer, I know this is probably not something we like to do or interest of us, but you should look at it and then go to your management or decision makers and say, hey, this is, I think, costing us too much. I think we can help by reducing this by changing these things. You can set up budgets and alerts. That's we use all the time, so there's no surprises in the month end. So for example, some of our project we'll say if budget goes more than 3,000, if the projection is more than 3,000 for this month, just let us know, so we get emails and alerts all the time. Then you can go and check it out, what the reason for that. Again, get your team involved. That's important. And compare with other clouds. Sometimes this is hard. I know if you are not familiar with other clouds like AWS and Google or something even smaller ones, it's hard. But as a company, there should be a way for you to compare all these costs. As I said, there's certain things in AWS they're definitely cheaper than Azure. And there can be some things in Azure that are cheaper than AWS and Google and all that combined. So that's how you have to think of this way. Azure Advisor is probably your best friend, 100%. This Azure Advisor tool, I'm not sure if you guys use it, but this is every day you gotta look at in the beginning. It has recommendations for everything. It can recommend you of all kind of resources, the performance, the cost, and all that. It's very drill down reporting. You can click on things very detailed, and it will recommend you what you need to change. Look at what is your deallocated unused resources and all the things underutilized, right? So sometimes what happens is in the beginning, let's say we have 20 people working on a team, and we end up creating these resources or servers or virtual machines or whatever databases, and allocate certain resources to them. In the beginning, you are using them. That's great. They're busy and all that. But now your project is done. And then your project is done. And then out of sudden, you just leave and a team move somewhere. But that resources are still there. So you have to look and say, OK, we don't use this anymore. This is underutilized resources. How can we utilize it? So let's give you a perfect example. We have we had a virtual machine on Azure. We were hosting a WordPress website on it, and obviously it was a smaller machine. But we realized that even though it was a WordPress smaller machine, there was not enough traffic. It's still underutilized. We were using like 27%, 26% of that. So we end up putting more WordPress websites on it, and now it's up to 80, 90% utilized. So that's kind of ranges, in Azure or any other cloud, your resources should be utilized at 80 plus 85, 90%. If they're not, they're underutilized and you are just throwing money away. That's what's happening a lot. Reserve instances, this is my best. I love reserve instances, and that's the reason is that because we have big needs for some of our applications, especially C Sharp Corner and bunch of some of our clients where they have a lot of users. So what reserve instances are, you can buy any of these say virtual machines or servers, whatever, or even databases and all. You can create your own instance and say this is my instance, and you can say I need this for 3 years. I'm happy to sign for a 3-year lease. It's compared to, it's pretty much leasing, right? But long-term leasing. It's not, if you go to rent a car, you go rent car for weekend, it's probably much costly that rather than leasing for 3 years, right? It's the same idea. When you lease for 3 years, your cost goes up, and this saves in up to 85%. I've seen some cases 60% is very normal. So look at that. If you think you or your company needs, say, 5 servers, and then you're going to keep them forever, and these are we definitely need, this is the resource, this is the memory, this is the database size, this is the hard drive size, and you will need them regardless. You look at reserve instance and book for 3 years, out of sudden you're going to save big time. And compare regions and zones. Here's the difference. Sometimes pricing from region to region and zone to zone is different. And a lot of people don't realize. They're like, oh, we are in East Coast, so we should have all our virtual machines or servers here in East Coast. Doesn't have to be. No. If your users coming from our user, for example, on one of applications, if your users come from all over the world, and California is the most users coming from, you probably want to think about that if that's cheaper. It's not performance and all that, it won't make a big difference, but if it's cheaper overseas, that's fine too. So especially some machines, you don't even care where they are because it's not a big deal, right? So you may find much cheaper somewhere else. So you definitely need to compare these when looking for pricing of these. This will save you a lot if you have some long-term needs. Hybrid licensing, saves a lot of money as well. So if you go to cloud and default licensing, sometimes it's really costly. So don't just go automatically in public cloud and get that. Say, for example, in a SQL Server. Don't just go to a default license. Sometimes you have to look for it. Sometimes buying a on-prem license or using your existing. So a lot of companies have multi-year deals with, say, Microsoft, for example. And your company may already have so many SQL Server licenses or Windows operating system licenses or other software licenses. So you can take your existing licenses and you can apply online. Or sometimes you buy in bulk and then apply online. You can apply your licenses on the cloud as well. So you need to compare that and look for that. Don't just go and get by default. And I know I'm talking a lot of things here, and as a software developer, we like, this is too much for me. I can't do that. How am I going to get my work done? But that's where the whole cloud strategy comes in. It's a company-wide approach. It's not one person, responsibility. I've been having pretty good time. I think we have we still have a ton of time left, so that's good. We are on 35 minutes. We have 15-20 more minutes. We'll have time for some questions. This is good auto scaling and auto shutdown, as I mentioned earlier, right? So you need to look at some of the unused or extra used resources where you can automatically scale them and auto shut down. And these are the features. If you look at when you're provisioning your new resources, you will see these options are available there for most, but not all. So you have to think about that. Sometimes one John, he may not support this option, auto shutdown, so you have to look at those. But as I said earlier, remember, say you have a team and you only work from this time to this time. There's no need for those resources to be running 24/7, because if they're running 24/7, you are throwing money away. You can just go and there's nothing manually you have to do. It's just a check box and a few settings. you can do that, and this will take care of automatically. Re-architect. This is most important part when you, because a lot of these applications we already have up and running right now, they're not optimized for cloud, and cloud does not work exactly as on-prem. Um, Obviously, I can take my existing application, create a virtual machine cloud, and deploy it as it is. No, that's done, right? Perfect example. One of my large client, and it's not direct my client. I'm through some other company, and they have 30,000 applications, and they end up migrating as it is. They start creating virtual machines as it is. They had on-prem here. They moved it to cloud. Now they are paying, they have already done that, majority of them. Now they're paying 3 or 4 times, 3x times monthly than they were spending on-prem. And they are now very frustrated because they have these applications already done. They spend, millions of dollars on for years, 2 years more time on that. Now they're frustrated because their cost went 3x. So, and there are multiple reasons for that. Some of them are definitely they have not optimized their resources. They have not looked at the company-wide strategy. And as I mentioned earlier, they rush things up like oh no, we have a goal. Within 2 years, we have to move everything to cloud. This is not how it works. Cloud is a little bit different, especially if you have a team that's not experienced, that's the one that has not done the similar thing before. Cloud, you cannot just do that. So you have to, some of the workloads, some of the applications, they have to be redone a little bit. They may not be optimized. So you may say, okay, this application, let's do this later because we're going to change certain things here. Okay. So some things you cannot just move as it is. SQL Server, you don't want to use as it is if it's not being utilized that much. You may want to go for a Azure SQL or some other smaller SQL instances, and that cost you $99 compared to $25,000, right? So then you have to kind of re-architect at least some part or some part of those applications. Again, cloud native app, and if you are building new, you're going to start thinking from cloud native. It's not, you should not do the same way you've been doing for past 10 years or 5 years or 8 years, because cloud works differently. Your deployment can be now in containers, so you can have multiple containers on same machine deployed and running, and it's going to, rather than just creating, like as I said, one of my clients, every time they have to deploy any application, even as a small tiny application, probably going to be used by 2 people in the company in accounting department. Oh, let's create a VM, deploy it there, create a little SQL servers there, and put everything there. No, that's all you're doing is really moving everything to cloud. What you're doing already on-prem, and probably end up paying more for now. So if you are anything, you are really starting from scratch. You need to learn cloud native. So there's good documentation on cloud native architecture. Microsoft has a lot of even a free book available on there. And also Docs, Microsoft Docs has, and there's a lot of articles out there to start with the cloud native app architecture and start thinking from cloud. Again, there are different versions of SQL Server. For example, if you really tie to SQL Server, say you can have different versions. You can have direct SQL on Azure VM as it is. You can use managed instance. You can Azure SQL. So you have to think which one saves you most time and money, and obviously performance, scalability, all that you have to keep in mind. But again, you have to think that what is my need? What is my workload? What is my users look like? What's my downloads look like? All these things have to be considered before you make the decision. And if you made a wrong decision, go back, and all as a team, you have to go revisit and look at, review, and try to refix that. It's not just like once and done. So this is the last, as I said, there is Microsoft has this something called Cloud Adoption Framework. What it does really, if you Google Cloud Adoption Framework and you're trying to learn and migrate to Azure, what it does is it actually guides you. It guides you step by step that, Okay, what is your, you have to first define your strategy. Again, it's a strategy, as I mentioned earlier. Includes multiple people from businesses, just not one developer doing it all. Then that includes, your why are you moving to cloud? And obviously the first why we move to cloud. Let's go back again, right? First is obviously to save money and cost and time, right? That's obvious. Second thing is that there's less headache in work, which also goes to money and time and all that. When there's new upgrades, automatic patches, and especially security. Security is probably one of the biggest issues today in coming times. The hacks and all that. So if anything is deployed in your Azure, you have all the things available already there. So you have to plan those right, and you have to prioritize project. As I said, you cannot just say, oh, we have to do this in 1 year, regardless of where we are. I don't think that works. You have to look at how much can you do efficiently and prioritize those projects. Prioritize the project that's needs more scalability and save you more money, and then some can go in the end. So you gotta, that's how you to look at it. That becomes your strategy, right? Then you have to plan it. uh, Planning includes obviously what kind of digital state you need. What are skill readiness is important, right? You not only, sometimes companies will hire architects and consultants and all that, and they migrate everything, but there's no skill upgrades in current existing team, and they don't know after that. So the team has to upgrade themselves as well and look into the cloud adoption plans. Then you're ready, set up, then you can learn about setting up different zones, different best practices and all that, and then you migrate, right? So after even migration, there's work. It's just not migration. You then go and start looking at the cost and the optimizations and resource utilizations and all that. And obviously after that it becomes management, benchmarking and all that. So yeah, check out this cloud adoption framework. It's a pretty good, very detailed, not only documentation, but it also tells you what tools and how to use them. With that said, thank you so much for hanging out with me this Monday. I know it was a little early and we still have 10 minutes. If you have any questions, let me stop sharing now. Okay, so there is a question from Eric. My company is considering migrated an app service plan from PV V2 to PV3. How can we evaluate whether a reserve instance makes sense? So good thing with the reserve instance, Eric, is that you can just go and click on reserve instance. It'll give you the idea uh, of how much you will save before you commit to it. It's already there, and it will compare and tell you how much you can save. It's exactly the same cost. What you're doing is Microsoft will say, oh, by taking this server or whatever you're creating virtual machine with what resources, uh, it will tell you that by paying this for 3 years, it also gives you option. You want 1 year lease, you want 2 year lease, 3 years lease. And so depending on you need, it will give you an idea what your cost savings will be. It's a big saving, significant. Check that out. Um, let's see what other cost is. Another barrier is learning how to properly automate runbooks. Also hidden costs is data. Any comments about migrating commercial applications such as Informatica from on-prem to cloud? Loss of features in past and SaaS versions products like SQL Server is another barrier. Yes, I do not have experience with Informatica, but I think some of these applications really are not uh, cloud friendly because they were designed. So I think the only best way, I have done a couple of applications where you can do much but move them as it is. So excuse me. So what we did is end up creating virtual machines with similar configurations and less, and then we kind of looked at it. One thing it helped though is that all the underutilized resources, so we didn't have to keep that much on that. So that's the only thing I can tell you. What I do most of my work is with the newer applications. That's really my interest, and also my experiences when our clients are building new applications, mostly around around newer technologies. Obviously, cloud native is one, but let's say we are building something with I'm sure you heard of metaverses. So we are using AI, we are using HoloLens in virtual in Microsoft mixed reality and other AR VR gadgets, and we are building um, this virtual walkthrough of these plants where people can, the engineers can walk through a plant and look at different assets and different devices and look different machineries, and then they can try to see which one needs maintenance. If yes, who is the right person to go and look at before they even go to the plant site. So what that does is that includes for us, there's a lot of data size because a lot of them are videos, 360 images. Virtual walkthrough includes Unity. Unity as one of the front end applications we use. So um, with that, what happens is some things we are hosting obviously in AWS cloud that, but certain things like file storage, we don't use in AWS, like regular storage. They are being used, stored in a CDN and linked from CDN there. So any thought on moving just SQL Server to Azure while keeping the application on-prem? Yeah, I don't know. Look at what kind of depends on how many users you have on there. I don't think why would you use that though, because it's probably going to. Do you have a reason why you want to do that? Just the SQL Server on Azure? Because out of sudden are also users. Where are your users coming from, right? Azure are way faster than on-prem. It seems that even with the latency. Okay, no. So if you already tested that out and you think by putting Azure is faster, I'm not sure why it would be faster if you are doing things right way. If you're basically bringing data, you're just bringing data from Azure to your local wherever your website is running. It should not be faster unless something is going on your local on-prem. Yeah, if that's your reason, to me, yeah. So it's really, I I would just also test this by migrating app to just Azure just to test it out, right? That's what I'm saying. Something probably on your local network. That's where otherwise, yeah, exactly. There you go. I think Eric has some suggestion on that side. Yeah, personally, I don't have much experience with network. We have network guys on our team. Um, um, all right, guys, we have 4 more minutes. Unless we have any other questions, we can give everybody a few minutes back. All right, everybody, thank you so much. If you need me or ask, like you can find me on C# Corner. I'm active on Twitter. Um, if you need these decks, I will share these with Bill, and I'm sure he'll send everybody email who's joining this code camp. Thank you so much, and have a nice day.